Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 9th, 2022 Civil Service Commission meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Here.
My apologies. Commissioner Carrion,
Here.
Commissioner Storian,
Here.
Chair Hartunian.
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Gazarian and McCarley are absent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Petrosian. What's next?
Minutes for the meeting of February 9, 2022.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
And what's next? Oh, okay, no need for a roll call. Yeah, okay, thank you. And next item?
Oral communications, we have none.
Okay. Next item?
Recruitment and examination report.
Ms. Martin?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is the Recruitment and Examination Status Report, which represents the current recruitments in process. Our staff is working on 59 different recruitments, which are at various stages and are included in the report for your review. If the Commission has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Hearing none. What's next?
Eligible list established.
Ms. Martin?
Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, these are the eligible list established since our last meeting. The report includes a total of the number of applications received, as well as the applicants who participated at various stages within the examination process. Overall, a total of 8 lists were established during this period, 4 of which were promotional, and 3 were open and promotional, while 1 was open. This also is a note and file item. However, if the Commission has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Are there any questions? Do we have any questions, Mr. Gazarian or Mr. Astorian?
I don't have any questions.
Okay,
Just for the record, Mr. Kazarian has joined the meeting.
correct. I just noticed. I think he was absent when we started, right? Okay.
Correct.
Welcome, Mr. Gazarian. We can't hear him.
You're muted, Mr. Gazarian. Okay, I think because he'll eventually, he's here though.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mr. Gazarian, can you hear us? Just a thumbs up if you can hear us. Okay, let's just move on, I think.
Yes. And on to the next item.
Job bulletin for approval, police lieutenant.
Ms. Martin?
Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, as you know, all safety promotional bulletins require the Commission approval prior to their posting. The item before the Commission is a job bulletin for approval for the position of police lieutenant. Ms. Zanaid Navarro from our staff worked on this item. She, along with Chief Povolitis and Lieutenant Tim Oswandel, are here to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions?
I have one. I have one item that I just wanted clarification on. If not, it's really not a major issue. But on the education and training, I don't know who I should ask this from. On the education and training, it says graduation from high school will obtain GED certificate. Then it says bachelor degree in major course with police, public, business administration. Wouldn't we just want to just list one of those? We don't really need the GED if we're actually going to require a bachelor degree.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Commissioner Abkarian, I would agree with that because the bachelor's degree is required in this particular case. So we can certainly list that as the requirement.
Okay, so we will just get rid of the GED and high school graduation requirement on that particular post.
Since it would be implied.
Okay. The only thing that I would just change with the, if there's no other questions, I'm not sure if anyone else has any questions.
Only that the chief just came online, and I don't know if he has any, no, he doesn't have comments.
I have, a-
Chief wants to just get it over with and get it passed and move on. That's what he wants to do.
I have a general question, not for this particular bulletin, but in general, the process when we say the GMA has been given the opportunity to review and has no comment, we could go ahead and approve this if we're gonna approve it, and then you can answer my question. But in general, I wanna learn more about the process. How does that work? When are they notified? When are they given the opportunity to comment? And what's the process of, or the procedure of commenting? Do we wait to hear back from them, or do we reach out to them? Just wanna learn more about that. Again, in general. So if there is a motion to approve this, we can do that, and then I can learn more about this process.
This would be the appropriate time to hear from the,
Okay. So, Ms. Martin. please.
Certainly,
just
Mr.
because
Chair.
it's not on the agenda and we wouldn't be able to hear it otherwise.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying maybe we could have a report next time and we can have the actual associations in here so they can actually have some input in it too.
That would make sense too, because I have a similar question about a different process. We might ask for a short report about that too.
Certainly, we'd be happy to provide that report.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve this item?
Motion to approve. With the change on the education side.
Mr. Chair,
Second?
I had
Okay.
sent in a question to staff seeking an answer. I'm just wondering if there is an answer for that, and if you can reinstate the question for the benefit of the entire commission.
I'm sorry, what was your question, Mr. Commissioner Astorian? You want me to repeat the question?
No, actually, staff has that. I don't know if you have it or you don't, but I'd send in a question anyways. The question was the following.
Oh, you sent the question to the staff.
Correct. And what I'm asking for the staff to do is, for the benefit of the commission, to reiterate that question. Maybe somebody can answer before you moved it, or somebody has moved the item before I can support the item.
Sure. Ms. Martin, do we have Commissioner Astoria's question?
Certainly, let
Let
me,
me just, I just don't want us to have any issues with Brown Act or anything else. Could one commissioner ask questions without any of the other commissioners having any knowledge of it beforehand and get some answers from the staff?
Absolutely, that is an approved process
Okay.
for commissioners to reach out individually,
Okay.
not as a group, not
Okay.
copying other
Just want to
commissioners.
make sure.
In fact, that is the process, right?
And the
Yeah.
question was specific to the bulletin that's being considered. So the motion does not have a second yet, and therefore we will have to make the motion again, but we'll hear the question first.
Okay.
Please.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, earlier today, Commissioner Astorian sent an email requesting, asking the following, if we could have the city attorney or HR shed some light on the following. Page 11 of the agenda states, effectively communicate in English, both orally and in writing. In a diverse city such as ours, having a bilingual officer may be considered an advantage. Shouldn't being bilingual be considered as a preference. Commissioner Astorian, earlier this afternoon, I tried reaching you, but we were unsuccessful and left a voicemail message. I'm not sure if you have had an opportunity to review that, but essentially I noted that we do bilingual recruitments for the classifications of police officer recruit, both for Armenian speakers as well as Korean speakers. However, this particular class specification and job bulletin don't require bilingual abilities at this particular level at the present time. And if the commission chooses to entertain additional discussion regarding the bilingual requirement, certainly we can address any additional questions commission may have.
not so much as a requirement, ma'am, but as a preference. For example, a college degree versus high school graduate, a college degree is preferred, or get some points on the application and so forth. That was my intention. And I'm curious, why is it not required now that you brought that up? And I'm not only talking about Korean or Armenian. Why not Spanish in that matter? The issue of bilingual in a diversity as ours, I think, is of utmost importance. So why would you say that it's not required?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Astorian, as the specification and bulletin currently stand, the bilingual ability is not listed as a condition of being able to qualify for this particular level position. Perhaps Chief Povolitis can add to this discussion, but as the specifications currently are listed, it's not a condition to be able to speak an additional language in order to qualify for the position of police lieutenant.
I think Commissioner Kazarian has a comment.
Yes, thank you. If we're talking about the position of a police lieutenant, my understanding of the police department ranking is one that leads me to conclude that a lieutenant is a supervisory quasi-management level position. I would have been much more in line with Commissioner Astorian's very well put concern or inquiry, if you will, if this was a sergeant level bulletin, because my understanding is that sergeants are on the field and lieutenants, though on the field, are generally on the field in a management supervisory capacity, supervising as needed incidents on the field. The chief can comment on that. With that understanding being my understanding, I don't have an issue that the matter of bilingual preference is even listed in the job bulletin. Thank you.
Chief, do you have a comment or?
Sure, I'll weigh in here a little bit. So when this becomes an internal promotional process. So when we hire people into the organization, we look for people with specific bilingual skills. In fact, we recruit them at times on different lists, so they compete in a different group. When we get to the lieutenant level, it is our entry level it's our first level of management within the organization. And so the pool of candidates is going to be our sergeants. If I were guessing, I would guess we will have somewhere between, I've got 36 sergeants. Tim, I'll let you correct me if I'm incorrect. We have approximately 36 sergeants in the organization. I would guess that about between 10 and 15 will probably take this exam. And so the first thing that we're looking for is people who have possessed the adequate technical skills to function as a lieutenant. And so that's not only going to be administrative type operations, but it's also field operations. So if we have a major incident, they become our incident commanders in the field. So any major police type incident is going to be commanded by a lieutenant until it gets large enough that it needs a larger ICS structure around that. And so bilingual skills may end up being a preference, all things being equal when they get evaluated in the process, but it's not a primary skill that we're looking for at that particular point for going into the process.
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief, and thank you, Commissioner Gazarian. I am ready to second Commissioner Afgharian's motion.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Abkarian?
Just want to make sure that we're doing this mechanically right. So I will renew my previous
Okay.
motion with the amendment on the education side. So now Mr. Astorian could go ahead and second the reset motion.
I will second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Gazarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Astorian,
Yes.
Chair Hartunian.
Yes. What's next?
Discussion on respiratory regulations for underground distribution construction mechanic series and underground distribution construction supervisor 2.
This is a discussion that's continuing from last sessions, I believe, right?
Correct.
Okay, and we have,
Mr. Chair.
oh, Ms. Martin, please.
Certainly. Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, at our last meeting on February 9th, the Commission approved the class specification for the Underground Distribution Construction Mechanic Series and Underground Distribution Construction Supervisor 2. At that meeting, given the proposed changes, Commission requested additional information pertaining to the elimination of the respiratory requirements and regulations. And today, we have our Fire Battalion Chief, Jeffrey Brooks, as well as our Electrical Superintendent, John Wanner, who can provide some additional context to the inquiries the Commission had at the last meeting. And I believe there's a presentation by BC Brooks.
Chair Hartuni and members of the Commission, Jeff Brooks, Glendale Fire Department. I watched the last meeting and we have some follow-up for you guys. So follow-up questions from the last meeting were as follows. I have no control. Next slide. The Glendale Fire Department, Glendale Water and Power, John Water and his crew and I got together and discussed all the questions from the last meeting. We have no concerns or issues with GWP's operations. Next slide. Questions from the meeting were Commissioner McCarley asked if GFD would be required to make repairs. No, we are not expected to make repairs, nor is that an operation that we would do. That's not our business. That's not what we're there for. Commissioner Abkarian asked about air quality and if fire was responsible for making the environment tenable. Fire is not responsible for making the environment tenable. Fire will be the rescue resource if there is a change in the atmosphere that causes a GWP entrant to be incapacitated. Again, before we would even make entry into that vault to conduct a rescue, that vault would be de-energized by the members they have on scene. Next slide, please. Glendale Water and Power has a comprehensive confined space policy that we went through together. Again, very detailed and very thorough. They follow all procedures for a confined space entry, including their permit operations. They have an entrant who goes down in the hole, an attendant up top, and an entry supervisor on the top side as well. They monitor the atmosphere to industry standards using a 4-gas monitor for combustibility, hydrogen sulfide, and oxygen levels. They utilize blowers to provide continuous ventilation when the space is occupied. So they're introducing air into that environment to make sure there's no noxious gases or anything else that would be a problem. Next slide. This is an example of the vault that they would go down into. You see on the left side, it's a confined space entry by permit only. On the middle slide, you'll see a circle around an orange thing. That is the 4-gas monitor, and there's a hose that goes down into that environment. They start by monitoring at ground level, and then that hose goes down into the hole to make sure what the levels are in that hole. On the right side is the blower. Again, in that tube you see going down is forcing air into that hole. Next slide. Again, Commissioner McCarley asked that we provide kind of an overview of the fire department, what we do. So this next piece will be on fire department special operations. Next slide. So the overview of the Glendale Fire Department Special Operations Program. We are an all hazard response agency. Again, as the 4th largest city in LA County and the 4th largest fire department, we're proud to be able to respond to any type of emergency that we may face. We have a type 1 hazardous materials team and a type 1 urban search and rescue team. The type of resources describe performance capability for that kind of resource. Type 1 is the highest and most qualified, and then 2, 3 sequentially down the road. Next slide, please. As you can see, there are 36 type 1 hazmat teams in the state. Again, we have one of those. You'll see us third from the top up there. Next slide, please. The hazmat program is designed to address the natural, technological, or purposeful response challenges, including chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive threats to our community, our response area in Area C, the region, and the state. We do this by providing 24-hour hazmat coverage by cross-staffing Engine 24, which is across from Verdugo Park, and Hazmat 24. Both those apparatus are staffed. This means that 4 personnel on the engine will move over to the hazmat apparatus if we have a hazmat response. For Area C responses, we partner with Burbank Fire to provide 8 members on scene for any emergency, and this ensures that we have personnel for entry, backup, technical reference, and command and control. Again, the beauty of this is that it lessens the impact on our response in the city, right? We're only taking 4 personnel out of the city or in the city to respond, and we're relying on our neighbors to help augment that. So it's not reducing our coverage capacity in the city. Next slide. This is a picture of Hazmat 24. That's the apparatus that carries the members and the equipment. Next slide. Hazmat training within a fire academy setting, hazardous materials first responder operations is a 16-hour course, and hazmat first responder operations DCAM. That's to learn how to do the decontamination, gross decontamination on scene. If you want to go on to be on the hazmat team, you're going to go through hazardous materials technician modules A through D, which is 160 hours of additional training, and then hazardous materials specialist modules F and G, which is an additional 80 hours. There are many additional training classes that most team members will participate in during their time in the program. Every year, we do 24 hours of continuing education to maintain our currency. Next slide. We have 32 personnel in the department that are qualified at the technician specialist level. Next slide. On the urban search and rescue side, urban search and rescue involves the location, rescue, and initial medical stabilization of victims trapped in confined spaces. Structural collapse is most often the cause of victims being trapped, but victims may also be trapped in transportation accidents, mines, and collapsed trenches. Urban search and rescue is considered a multi-hazard discipline, as it may be needed for a variety of emergencies or disasters, including earthquakes, hurricanes, typhoons, storms, and tornadoes, floods, dam failures, technological accidents, terrorist activities, and hazardous materials releases. The events may be slow in developing, as in the case of hurricanes, or sudden, as in the case of earthquakes. Next slide. This is USAR 21. This is our USAR apparatus that's cross-staffed by Truck 21. Next slide. Department provides this 24-hour USAR coverage by, again, cross-staffing that apparatus with the truck company at Station 21. For Area C responses, we partner with Pasadena Fire to provide a minimum of 8 members on scene for any emergency. This ensures that we have personnel trained in every discipline of USAR operations on scene, with the ability to add additional qualified members as needed. Again, this lessens the impact to operations within our city so that we can still respond to our daily emergencies. Next slide. California has USAR regional task forces. Regional task forces are a 29-person specially trained team with transportation and equipment for extended, large, and complex USAR operations such as earthquakes, flooding, wildland fires, mass transportation accidents, and WMD events. The regional task force provides for 5 functional elements: supervision, search, rescue, medical, tools and equipment support. Regional task forces are designed to deploy within 45 minutes of receiving a mission anywhere in California, self-sufficient for 24 hours, and they're organized for a minimum of 12-hour operational periods. Next slide. California USAR regional task forces, in order to meet the 29-person minimum team requirements, we share the staffing load across 6 agencies in Area C. Again, that's so it's not impacting our coverage here. So Glendale, Pasadena, Arcadia, Monterey Park, Alhambra, and Monrovia. Together, these agencies make up California RTF 4. Next slide. There are 10 RTFs in California. As you can see, Marin County, Santa Fe Springs, Long Beach, Verdugo, which is all the cities I just mentioned, Fresno, San Bernardino, Ventura County, Los Angeles, Bakersfield, and Santa Barbara. Next slide.
Could you go back one? Okay, sorry about that. Sure. I apologize.
So USAR Heavy, a Type 1, again, we're a Type 1 team that's also called a USAR Heavy. Capabilities are rescue and heavy floor construction, rescue and precast concrete construction, rescue and steel frame construction, high-angle rope rescue, confined space rescue, permit required, which is what we've talked about with GWP, mass transportation accidents, planes, trains, and automobiles. That is a cache of equipment that goes on that apparatus that you saw a picture of. There's minimum state standards of all the equipment we must carry. Next slide, please. Again, for the USAR, Fire Academy training is low-angle rope rescue operational, 24 hours, and confined space awareness. That's just awareness training for confined spaces, 8 hours. If you want to go on to be a USAR team member, there are 5 core classes: low-angle rope rescue operational, rescue systems 1, rescue systems 2, trench rescue technician, confined space rescue technician. And there are many additional classes that most team members will participate in during their time in the program. We just, this last week, did some crane training. They have the crane up over at Glendale Community College, and we did training simulating that operator had an emergency in the crane. So we're always looking for opportunities to continue to hone and develop our skills. Again, in this program, an additional 24 hours of continuing education required annually. Next slide. We have 47 personnel qualified at the USAR team level. Significant RTF deployments were the campfire up north, again, where it was search and recovery and large area mapping. The Montecito mudslides, if you remember those, same thing, was to go in those areas, do grid searches, and look for survivors. The state is also starting to utilize the RTFs more in large wildland fires to conduct wide area searches. Again, so it's not tasking resources that are there to fight the fire. They're utilizing the RTFs to go and conduct those searches. Next slide. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief Brooks. Any questions? Do we have questions?
I just have a quick question from Mr. Wenner, if you don't mind. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Very well done. So before the employee goes down on the, what do they call them, manholes? What do they call those things?
Can't call it manhole anymore, but
Okay, yeah, the person hole.
the vault.
Whatever they call them now. Well, before they go down, do they actually send something down there to see if the air, how about if you have deadly gases down there before they actually go in? Do they actually monitor that? Is there a monitor there?
That's the monitor that we explained in the picture.
Okay, the one
little
that
gas
goes down.
monitor. So we'll test at the top. We'll take one bolt out, test there, crack the lid, test there, and then we go at various levels until we get all clean air, and then we enter.
Then you actually send somebody down
Yes,
there?
sir.
Got it. Okay.
Do we have any other questions? I have one or two, maybe. Thank you again for the very informative presentation. Looks like there are plenty of procedures and requirements for safety. My question is, I would assume we have most, if not all of these requirements back in the time when we also had the requirement for the respiratory regulations,
Right.
didn't we?
Back then, yeah. I mean, but we worked with different things, like we worked with lead splicing, so we would have to wear the respirator. But there's so many things that we don't even do anymore. That's why we just quit doing
Okay,
it.
that was my question.
Yeah.
What has changed? Because I would assume we would have
Technology.
these
Yeah.
procedures back in the days, and now we're eliminating
Yep.
this requirement. Why was it so either burdensome or unnecessary anymore that we are now deciding to eliminate?
Well, it's new ways.
Okay.
That's unsafe, like working with that lead. We got all the lead out of Glendale. So therefore, we don't need the respirators when we're messing with that stuff anymore. And there's nothing required for us to wear it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
guys.
very much.
Thank you very much. Great job. Thank you so much.
What's next?
Reports?
Ms. Martin?
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is the past due employee performance evaluation report. As you can see, there are 11 departments that have no past dues and 3 departments that have a total of 3 evaluations on first notice. This is a note and file item.
Okay, any questions on this? Anyone? I have a similar question about this process. If possible, I'd like to learn more, whether it's by report or having people to answer some questions of how this process is conducted. How are the evaluations sent? How are they notified? How are the evaluations collected back? What time, how much time do they have to do it? To respond to these evaluations? Is that something we can request a short written report about, or have people answer some questions?
Chair Hartunian, in fact, this particular issue has been studied by this commission multiple times. We can either bring it back to the full commission if that's the desire of the other commissioners as well, or we could do a separate discussion with you outside of a regularly scheduled meeting. I think the last time we probably discussed this was right before your term started.
That was actually, as I was thinking about this question and making notes, that was going to be my disclaimer. Before I asked the question, I was going to say, I'm sure this has been discussed many times, but I forgot to make my disclaimer. So
I would
whatever.
like to actually get a report on this because there are new issues that have come up, and I wouldn't mind actually getting a full report on this, unless if anyone is against getting a full report.
I'll be happy. I don't know if you can send me some of the.
Mr. Asteria?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. A full report to the commission would be fantastic for all of us, including myself.
So then we'll bring it back
We
at a
can
later
certainly-
time.
Okay, so we'll wait for a full report? Okay.
I mean, it sounds like that's the interest of
That's
the,
what everybody
right.
wants to, I guess, get up to speed and maybe whatever updated processes there may be. And
Right.
everybody wants to get up to speed on this. Okay. Do we have an idea when we can expect this report for the next meeting or?
we can certainly work that out with you
Okay.
as the chair to try to agendize the sequence of the reports that we've got bringing back, depending on the volume of the other items that may require additional or more urgent review by the commission. So we can work that out with you.
Any questions? Hearing none. What's next?
Civil Service Commission, staff comments.
I have one request, and I hope we can get this done. And this doesn't have to be done immediately, but sometime maybe by August of this year, if we can get a full-on discussion. I would like to have a review of all of the Civil Service Commission rules and regulations by us, by the associated management groups and the employee association to make recommendation as to how we can, well, first of all, review of all the rules and regulations, one by one, so we can have comments by the commissioners, by the management group, by the employee association. This way, then, first of all, we all know what's going on. We've done this before, but I think time has come to do it again. So we can do that. And my main focus is going to be how we can make it as easy as we possibly can for an employee to file complaints and to appeal on a particular case. So that's my main focus of what changes needs to be done on it. So sometime in August, I know there needs to be time for people to look over the rules and regulations. So sometime in August, if we can have a session where we can make recommendation changes. I know we have 2 new commissioners. They would be able to make recommendation and changes. The Employee Association and the management group could make changes. And so that's what my request would be. To have a report and bring back so we can actually make recommendations for changes to the rules and regulations and amend the rules and regulations.
Just for clarification's sake, do you mean that there in August or sometime in that time frame, we would review each rule at a meeting, or that we would come prepared with comments on the rules?
The way we did it before, which was, I think, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, whatever it was, we did it last. The way we did it was that rules and regulations were actually provided to the commissioners, to the management, to everyone else. They actually then made recommendations for changes, both the management did and the employee association, and each commissioner had recommendations for changes. At that point, we don't have to review everything if there are no changes necessary, but the ones that we actually will make recommendations for changes then gets reviewed on that session or 2 sessions, depending on how extensive the changes might be.
So probably some mechanism whereby the communication is sent to commissioners and the employee associations with certain deadlines to
Yes.
submit comments back to
Yes.
HR, and then assemble all of those and bring them back for a discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
I would very much welcome such a reporting process.
I mean, that's pretty clear for me. I don't know. Ms. Martin, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
And-
Thank you. I understand what the
And
direction is.
did I hear, Ms. Rapperton, you said it's pretty quick? Could be pretty quick, or?
No, it won't be quick. Definitely will not be quick.
That's why, that's why I said if it could be done quicker, then I would welcome it quicker. I thought
No, the first part would definitely be quick, being able to push out the communication. That
Okay.
part could be
Maybe
done pretty
that's what we
quickly.
said.
And then I
That's-
think the rules are pretty extensive, so it's going to require
Correct.
a great deal of review on the part of the commissioners as well.
And I just want to make sure that there are no restrictions as to what part of the rules and regulations we can amend. I don't want it to be specifically to one area or the other. It's amendment of the entire rules and regulations by any,
A review.
a review
A
of the
review
entire.
of the entire, right,
A review,
Or-
proposed
or-
change.
review.
Or recommendations for changes.
right. Ultimately, there's a process to go through rule changes, but
Right.
we'll cross that bridge when we get
Right.
to it.
Okay.
For a question, a
Yes,
question for the city attorney. When we, at least when I started, you gave me a civil service commission binder, first section of it has to do with the rules and the regulations. I believe this is what Commissioner Abkarian is referencing when they want us as commissioners to really review this and then talk come August about changes that we want to make. Am I on the right track on this thing?
You are, and on the city's website, I believe the most current version is dated March 2019. So if that's the same as what you have, then I think you have the latest version.
Could we just have an email to all the commissioners with the latest version of the rules and regulations? This way no one is going off of a different script, so to speak.
But you would be correct, Commissioner Astorian, you did get a binder that included the rules.
And so we each individually will review each section of that. And if we do have suggestions, we bring it back to that August meeting. Am I correct?
I think the process that was described was that the chief examiner would disseminate the rules in the coming weeks and invite comments to the rules by employee associations and individual commissioners. And then she will set reasonable timelines for comments to be returned to her. And then she will put all of those comments together and then be prepared to come back to the full commission by August. Again, working with the chair and trying to determine a date and time that's reasonable.
The way we had it previously, Mr. Astorian, if I may, Chair, we actually had, it would basically say, Section 1, rule change recommended by Commissioner Abkarian, and then it would say the rule. Then it would say Employee Association, Section 1, Rule 6. So it would be like a ongoing list of things that were changes plus who recommended those changes. And then we would go through each one and then vote on it. Some of them were voted yes, some were voted no. So we just have to kind of go through each one of the recommendation by each parties, starting from Section 1, going all the way to the end of the section.
I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up question? Because I feel like did we answer all of your questions?
Ordinarily, at least from the previous commission that I'm coming from, and maybe quite different with civil service, is that staff reviews all of the rules and regulations, makes suggestions and or recommendations or changes that they see fit. That comes in front of the commission, and based on those commissions, any additional comments that a commissioner may have on any other part over and above what staff recommendation is how the process begins to work.
I'm not comfortable with that, the Commissioner Astorian. I'm comfortable in making recommendations. Staff could make recommendation as well. That was actually what happened last time as well. The staff also made recommendations, and then we had recommendations from the management, from the staff, from the association, and from the commissioners. So no one was left out, so to speak, out of the process. I mean, no one has to make any recommendation. You might read the whole thing and like what you see. So, but my recommendation, my inclination would be for everyone to have a voice in the process so no one is left out. Not that the staff would ever leave anyone out, but I'm just saying no one has a feeling that they're left out.
Commissioner Astoran, you're certainly correct that the process can be both ways. It has been both ways in different commissions. This commission has, the majority of the times where it's been generated, where change has been forthcoming, it's been through the participation of the commissioners as well. So certainly with other commissions, staff typically generates the changes, as you're recalling, but that's just one way of doing that.
Sure.
Anything else? Any other questions? Next item?
Adjournment.
Move to adjourn. Or adjourn?
Yes, adjourn. Night, everyone. Thank you.